Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, let's get into another mega topic from college hoops this weekend. Kind of a weirdly very busy weekend in college hoops. It's funny, right? My buddy John Rothstein says we sleep in May. There ain't no sleeping because there was a lot of stuff that went on. But I would argue that maybe the single biggest story in college hoops this weekend came on the recruiting trail. Emoni Bates, a player that many consider to be the best high school prospect, not only currently in high school basketball, but some have called him the best high school basketball prospect since LeBron, announces that he has decommitted from Michigan State. He committed to Michigan State a little under a year ago, but on Friday he announces that he is both going to decommit from Michigan State while reopening the college recruiting process, and that he would also consider pro options. And so I want to get into all this. I want to talk about it. I want to break it down. But as I heard the news and my phone blew up and people were asking me about it, two immediate things came to mind. First of all, I don't think this is as big of a deal for Michigan State as a lot of people may make it out to be. And it was interesting because I saw some reaction from Michigan State fans that would reflect the same thing. But also, let me just say this. I'm never here to tear down, criticize a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid. But as he now enters his senior year of high school, I think we have a pretty compelling argument. It might be time to stop calling this kid the next KD, the next LeBron, the next whoever. Unfair to him. I'm not blaming him. We in the media have done this to him. But I think we have a growing case that we need to stop kind of putting these labels on Emoni Bates. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it. And again, as a little bit of a backstory, I think all of you, if you care enough to listen to this, you probably know a little bit about Emoni Bates, but 6'10", 6'9", wing. His game is most compared to Kevin Durant. And basically, since the moment he stepped on a high school basketball court back, I guess it was in, 2019, which doesn't seem that long ago. But 2018. So 2018, 2019 would have been his freshman year. Basically, as soon as that season happened, he was labeled as maybe the best high school basketball prospect since LeBron. Dominated as a freshman, was great as a sophomore. Obviously, last year his season was cut short by the COVID-19 pandemic. And what was interesting was in the middle of the pandemic, he made a very weirdly surprising decision seemingly out of the blue to commit to Michigan State. Now, it's worth noting that, essentially the reason he committed to Michigan State was basically the idea that nobody else was recruiting him. Basically, everybody it had kind of been a foregone conclusion that he was always going to go to the professional ranks. There had been talk all the way back when he was a freshman that they might change the one and done rule, and that he might be the face of the new era of basketball when players could go straight from high school back to the NBA like they could back in the day. There was also obviously at that point the G League program with Jalen Green had just started. Australia was always going to be a factor. And so nobody was really recruiting him except for Michigan State because nobody ever believed that he was going to step on a college campus. And it was interesting because even when he committed, I know some people at Michigan State, and I don't know about an hour before, but probably like a day or two before, they had no idea that he was going to commit to Michigan State. And so that is part of the reason why I don't think this is as big of a deal for Michigan State as a lot of people are going to make it out to be. Yes, if you have a chance to bring in a player that has been compared to LeBron James, whose game resembles Kevin Durant, he's now more the next KD than the next LeBron because his game is more resembling of Kevin Durant, 6'9", 6'10", three-point range, all that stuff. But obviously, look, on the one hand, you have a chance to bring that guy in. It's a huge story when he decides he's not coming. But on the other hand, the reason it's not that big of a deal is because I don't think anybody, even the day he committed, really expected him to play in college basketball. Keep in mind, I get it. A lot of things can change. A lot of things can change back then. A lot of things can change going forward. But I guess the thought process was maybe when he committed, maybe name, image, and likeness will be in place by the time that he gets to a college campus, so maybe that will entice him to come. But I think the reality was always, first of all, the NBA could change its one-and-done rule, but second of all, there are going to be a ton of professional options for this kid, be it in Australia, be it in the G League. Now, he did say on Friday that he is still considering college options. And by the way, how about my boy Chris Beard, University of Texas, becomes the first school to offer him a scholarship after the decommitment from Michigan State. I'll give Chris Beard credit for this. he is basically trying to turn Texas into like the next great college basketball superpower. He has got his swag since he got to Texas, and I'm really excited to see what he does and where he how he does it. But the fearlessness to just say, yeah, you're probably going to go pro, but here's a college scholarship. We want you to come to Texas. And, of course, the idea being that if the Kevin Durant played at Texas, you're the next Kevin Durant, so come be the next Kevin Durant where Kevin Durant first became Kevin Durant. That's a lot of Kevin Durant in a sentence. But anyway, so that's why I don't think it's that big of a deal for Michigan State, because I don't think anybody really expected him to play college basketball to begin with, and I don't think anybody really expects him to play college basketball going forward. But what I would also say is beyond that, and it's something I've talked about, I think we're starting to get a growing case and a growing narrative if you look at his entire career that other guys are catching up and that the label of best high school player since LeBron, best high school player since KD, whatever, that label is just completely unfair. And so let's talk a little bit about who he is and where he is going, because this is the latest in. When the decommitment happened, I texted a few people, and they just said, man, there is something that is not totally right there. And again, I'm not here to criticize a 17, 18-year-old kid, but I will tell you, I have kind of been on this from the beginning, right? I've been doing this a long time. I'm not saying I'm good at it. I'm not saying I'm bad at it, but I love college hoops. I've been following this sport forever. And let me just say, from the beginning, I have never bought the hype that this kid was the best high school player since LeBron. You know why? Because I have heard that label dropped so many times on so many people, and it never sticks. First of all, LeBron, 17, 18, 19 years in the NBA, whatever it is, still playing at an MVP level, still has the Lakers in position to win an NBA championship, still the best player on a title team a season ago. So first of all, that guy is a unicorn. There will never be another LeBron, just like there will never be another MJ, just like, let's be honest, there will probably never be another Allen Iverson, another Shaq, another Wilt, another Russ. Stop. We need to stop trying to make these comparisons to once-in-a-lifetime players and people. But even then, I said, can we pump the brakes on Emoni Bates? Can we stop labeling these kids the best player since LeBron, the best player since Kobe, the best player since KD? Because it's unfair to them. I have been doing this for so long. I remember when, Greg Oden was the best center prospect since Patrick Ewing. Love Greg Oden. Wish him the best. I think he's actually coaching AAU right now. I have no ill will at all towards Greg Oden, but that was never fair to him. It was never fair to Andrew Wiggins to call him the best high school prospect since LeBron. And, oh, by the way, it didn't work out. Ben Simmons, the best high school prospect since LeBron. Jabari Parker, who was in Andrew Wiggins' class at one point, was labeled the best high school prospect since LeBron. So you had two different players in the same class labeled as the best high school prospect since LeBron. How can you have two different players who are the greatest player in the last 20 years? It doesn't make sense. It's unfair. And as it pertains to Emoni Bates, I thought that label was put on him way too early and way too unfairly as it pertained to his future. And as we look at where he is right now, I think it is officially time to back off. I think he's a really good prospect, 5-star prospect. It's really interesting. I saw my buddy Sam Vecini say this. It's okay to just call him a really, really, really good 5-star prospect. We don't have to put labels like Kevin Durant and LeBron James on him. And right now, what I would say personally is that increasingly, I think that we have a growing kind of resume, if you will, that says that he isn't that guy, and at least right now is not going to be that guy by the time that he is finished with high school. First of all, the fact remains that I believe if you kind of just look at the entire body of work of Emoni Bates and his family and how things have been handled, and I don't even necessarily blame him for this, this kid has been incredibly sheltered throughout his career, okay? Basically has never played Team USA basketball events. That's where all the best players go. You compete against the other best players in the country. You see who's good. You see who's bad. You see who this, that, the other thing. Emoni Bates has basically never played Team USA. On top of that, he has never played until this summer the highest level of AAU basketball. They call it 17s, okay? So that is the players that are 17 and under going into their senior year. But obviously you can play up if you're good enough. It's worth noting, LaMelo Ball, you can criticize LeVar for a lot of things. LaMelo Ball was playing against high school juniors and seniors when he was in 7th and 8th grade, okay? Other guys play 17s if they are ready. Emoni Bates, the last time there was a true AAU season, he was coming off his freshman year. The players like Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, who are going into the NBA right now, were going into their senior years. But Emoni Bates didn't play on the level with them. He played at his own age, and basically he was just bigger, stronger, more athletic than everybody else. I mean, you can find clips of that summer where he's basically got a 5'9" kid trying to guard a 6'10" kid that all he does is shoot threes. And so when I look at Emoni Bates, it's like if you're really the best player, I'm not saying you have to go to the highest level and dominate Cade Cunningham. I'm not saying you got to dominate Jalen Suggs, but you got to compete with them. And so this was this year is the first year that he has ever played the highest level of AAU basketball. It's worth noting. You know what last weekend was? The first real weekend of AAU basketball of the summer. You know who was there? A lot of people in the media, and they were there because Emoni Bates was there, and the number 2 player in the class, Jalen Durant, was there. Well, I talked to people who were at that event, Jack Pilgrim from KSR, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the consensus among people that was there was that Emoni Bates might still be the best player in the class, but one, the gap is closing, and Jalen Durant outplayed him head-to-head. And so when I look at this entire situation, here are the facts. We now have a kid that has never played Team USA basketball or hasn't been to many events. This is his first year playing the highest level of AAU basketball, goes to an AAU event and gets outplayed by the number 2 player in the country. It's also worth noting, one of the reasons that Michigan State fans weren't all too frustrated with his decommitment was because there were some hiccups at the high school that he played at this year, which, oh, by the way, the high school that he played at was created by his father for him. And so there was another Michigan State commitment named Jaden Atkins who played at the school. He left a couple weeks in, and the report was because he wasn't happy with the fact that everything revolved around Emoni Bates and that he was playing selfishly, he wasn't playing team basketball. And so all I'm saying is there has been this bubble created around him. I don't believe that he has continued to rise and get better at the level that other players did in this class. And I think a couple things. One, there's talk that he won't even be the number 1 pick in his upcoming draft in 2023. There's a kid from France, 7-footer. He's huge. He's athletic. They're saying he might go number 1. There's talk that he being Emoni Bates, might not even be the number 1 high school player in his own class in 2022, and that Jalen Durant, who's originally from Philadelphia, who played at, I believe, Montverde last year, is actually the best player in his class. And so how can you be the best high school player of all time if you're not even the best player in your class? No disrespect, but it's just facts, and I always thought it was unfair. You can go back, find the tweets, listen to the podcast. I always thought it was unfair to label him with that label of the best high school basketball player since LeBron. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. It'll be interesting to see if he chooses the college route. It's worth noting, I saw Sam Vecini say this, and I do think he might be right about this. This might be the one case where I do think it might be better for this kid to actually choose that G League route as opposed to choosing a college program. And let me explain why. If he chooses college, chances are pretty good, and I don't want to generalize or stereotype. He's probably going to go to a place where things will be catered to him, where everyone will make sure that, again, he stays in the little bubble that he's been in. And I do think going to the G League, getting professional coaching, working with professional trainers, kind of breaking him of some of the bad habits, because right now he's just kind of a gunner, offensive-minded guy, doesn't play defense, doesn't play team ball. Sam brought it up, is like that might actually be the best thing for him. And you guys know I generally advocate for players to go to play college basketball. I think it's a great stage for them. But in his case, he's already got the brand. He's already got the name. Everybody knows him. I do think it'll be interesting to see if he chooses that G League route, Australia, or something else. But I will say maybe going pro in his case would be the best thing for him. But Emoni Bates decommits, and I think it'll be really interesting to see what happens next. But I'm just going to say it, guys. I really do think that it's time that we start removing that label of best high school prospect since LeBron James. I don't think it's fair to him. And it's okay, by the way. Like I said, this is not a criticism. It's okay to just be a really good 5-star, top 5 NBA draft pick. But I do think it's officially time. Best player since LeBron, best player since KD, whatever. Let's stop using that label when it comes to that kid. It's not fair to him. Oh, and by the way, if you enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Go ahead and subscribe. First of all, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Then on top of that, go find me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. Find me on Instagram at Aaron Torres Pod.